President Donald Trump surprised countries around the world last week by announcing he would double tariffs on metal imports to 50%.
We still continue to believe that it would be a mistake for the American government to proceed with imposing tariffs. It would be a mistake.
The Prime Minister's message today was bolster and protect. Bolster the steel industry by growing the domestic market and protect by reducing the amount of foreign steel allowed into Canada.
Detroit was blindsided. One moment factories thrived, the next steel vanished, plunging the Motor City into chaos. Why did Canada, America's closest ally, seemingly halt metal exports overnight? Was this a trade war or something more? In July 2025, Canadian steel shipments to the U.S. plummeted by nearly 100%. Customs data confirmed industry fears. Exports had virtually ceased. Empty rail cars, silent loading docks, and Detroit's automakers desperately sought replacement supply at exorbitant costs. Meanwhile, in Hamilton, Ontario, steel mills operated at full capacity. Night shifts resumed, and parking lots filled up. Across the border, Detroit's supply chains faltered. Input prices soared, construction projects stalled, and a silent panic gripped America's manufacturing heartland. What triggered this sudden freeze? How did Trump's tariff gamble backfire so spectacularly? As Detroit's factories dimmed, Ontario's lit up. Canada's silent steel shutdown sparked an unexpected revival in Canadian steel towns. Workers in Hamilton, Sault Ste. Marie, and Windsor were recalled after years of offshoring concerns. Shifts were reinstated, furnaces reignited, and parking lots once empty were full. Canada had quietly rationalized demand, but across the border, Detroit's automakers were suffering. For Ford and General Motors, the loss of Canadian supply was economically devastating. Ford reported an additional $2.5 billion in production costs in the first half of 2025 alone due to soaring steel and aluminum prices. Raw material costs surged, hitting steel-heavy products like pickup trucks hardest. Assembly lines slowed, and in some facilities, production was scaled back or shifts were canceled. Michigan felt the pain acutely. The state's unemployment rate jumped from 4% to 5.4% by February 2025, the largest annual increase in the nation. Economists warned of a potential recession across the Midwest, particularly in auto-dependent towns. Canada made no official declaration, issued no tariffs. They simply redirected the flow. Detroit wasn't attacked, it was abandoned. The layoffs in Michigan were just the beginning. As U.S. manufacturers struggled to find steel, the repercussions reached Alberta's oil fields. American suppliers had long dominated the export of specialty steel pipes for Canada's energy infrastructure projects. In 2025, that stream dried up. Faced with Trump's tariffs and Canada's shift, Alberta mandated domestic-only steel for its pipeline expansions, effectively severing supply chain ties with the U.S. American steel contractors were locked out. The contracts remained in Canada, creating a rupture in North America's energy corridor. The U.S. lost a customer and a strategic foothold. The tariff war evolved into a deeper decoupling. As factories stalled, Washington erupted. Lawmakers accused Canada of erecting a disguised trade barrier, but Ottawa had done nothing illegal, simply directing steel toward domestic projects, using environmental and security standards as justification. Under international trade law, the U.S. case was weak. Congressional hearings became political theater. Auto industry executives predicted reduced production and mass layoffs. Lobbyists urged lawmakers to act, but consensus was elusive. Trump's tariff policy had cornered Congress into a geopolitical standoff with no clear solution. The pressure mounted on Detroit and Capitol Hill. The chaos stemmed from Trump's activation of Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, imposing a 50% tariff on steel and aluminum imports from Canada. The decision shocked Canadian industry leaders and global markets. Even within Trump's circle, it caused confusion. Governors of auto-heavy states received no warning. Wall Street reacted sharply, but Ottawa remained calm, choosing a calculated response. Rather than a public trade war, Canada redirected its steel inward by rewriting procurement guidelines, tightening security protocols, and enforcing stricter environmental sourcing rules. It was legal, quiet, and effective. U.S. companies struggled as shipments dried up and contracts were canceled. Lawmakers accused Canada of hiding behind climate rules to block trade, but without explicit violations, challenging Canada at the WTO was impossible. Trump's tariff became a self-made trap, isolating manufacturers and damaging relations with a key partner. Every factory slowdown and job loss stemmed from one miscalculation. Trump built a wall, but Canada had already prepared the exit. Canada had been preparing for this moment, not planning retaliation, but building resilience. Canadian policymakers had quietly crafted a new industrial doctrine rooted in self-sufficiency and clean energy. It was a declaration of independence. In early 2025, Ottawa launched the Steel Modernization Fund to revive the industry, prioritizing low-emission production and supply chain security. Canada imposed quotas on steel imports, ensuring it wouldn't depend on foreign markets. Steel producers could invest in modernization and adopt new technologies. Public infrastructure projects were redesigned with strict carbon criteria, favoring domestic or recycled steel. The domestic market became more competitive and aligned with climate goals. Canada methodically redirected national capacity under its sovereign rights. This was a structural shift to free Canada from U.S. politics and global commodity shocks. Canada is building a clean, integrated, and future-proof steel economy. By 2035, all major Canadian steel plants must transition to electric arc furnaces, slashing emissions. EAFs are being paired with direct reduced iron technology, representing one of the cleanest steelmaking paths available. Canada has abundant clean electricity from hydro, wind, and nuclear power. Canadian steel makers can meet the EU's carbon border adjustment mechanism, attracting automakers seeking to meet ESG targets. This is a geopolitical race to own the materials of the next industrial age. Canada reinvented its steel cycle, shielding itself from market volatility. Canada expanded its recycled steel infrastructure, offering a 35% tax rebate to manufacturers using scrap steel. Recycled steel emits less carbon, and Canadian firms offer clean steel with a closed-loop supply chain. Provincial governments developed regional recycling ecosystems linked to net-zero steelmakers. Canada achieved price stability, emissions reduction, and supply chain independence. Resilience is built with smarter systems, and Canada just proved it. Canada aims to be essential to the industries of the future. The carbon passport allows Canadian steel to cross EU borders without carbon tariffs. Steel is a climate-aligned tool of diplomacy, selectively funneled to industries matching Canada's environmental priorities. Innovation is rewarded with opportunity, weaving climate strategy into trade policy. Canada built a ladder while Trump built a wall, tilting the balance of North American trade. A tariff dispute triggered a dismantling of economic interdependence. Canada is strategically decoupling, offering clean steel to Europe. This is a realignment of priorities shaping the industries of tomorrow.